A funeral singer. Worse.
It's the beginning of the second week's work placement for would-be music promoters Colin and Dan. At the end of the week, one of them will be offered a 6-month contract with Choice Cuts, but first they have to complete their final task. They have to come up with a concept for a brand new club night and present their plans to Mark and Lachlan on Friday. As well as the concept, they'll have to pin down a venue and present a viable business plan.
The challenge that we have for them this week is to kind of get them to come to us with a concept, an idea and a business plan for a regular Saturday night.
It'll be good to see how they take what we do and the ethos behind our work and then kind of spin it.
We've never done a Saturday before on a regular basis, so this is something that is very important for us.
Are you looking to have this within a specific time frame, like the launch?
You can choose when the launch night is. Okay. Any time in the year.
Any time this year.
What size of a night are we talking about? Because, you know, like Dig is a huge night, it has 3 separate rooms.
Well, you choose the venue.
We choose.
We want something that's completely new for Dublin and something that will generate money and kind of position us as a really good Saturday night. And also I want it to be so tight that all we've got to do is implement your idea and it'll just run itself.
This is a first for Choice Cuts, and Saturday night is a very different market for them.
It's one of those ones that sounds easier than it's going to be. It's going to be huge.
Luckily enough, it's kind of fitted into something that I've already started thinking about, and I like the idea that, you know, it's really an opportunity to shine, an opportunity to show them your ideas and to show them what you can do.
The guys have a very particular idea of what they want, and it's for me to take some element of my background and what I'm into and to merge it with theirs, but without going too far away from what people expect from Choice Cuts.
But before they get too carried away with their club concepts, Mark and Lachlan want to make sure their initial ideas are on the right track. First up, it's Dan, with an idea inspired by his background in more traditional rock and roll music.
The name is Amped, live hip hop and soul for fans of rock and roll. The idea of having kind of like jam sessions with live drummers and bass players and guys scratching, I really want to do it. But that would only be a small part of it. If I get a place, ideally what I'd be looking for is a place that would hold 500 people. And I was thinking about launching it kind of after the exams, kind of May-ish.
I'd be a bit wary of that.
Right, okay.
So has Dan managed to impress Mark and Lachlan?
Dan's idea, very interesting. I liked his pitch, was excellent.
Hip hop and soul for fans of rock and roll. And I thought this was a good idea. You can kind of see it on a flyer already.
Even in the tagline, he's kind of getting in the rock and roll market.
I would have expected a little bit more with regard to location, and his launch night would probably be the worst time of the year.
I would love to see Dan come out of left field with a location that neither us nor any of the other promoters had thought of.
I really do think that if he doesn't change that the launch, that it might go against him.
Next up is Colin with his concept for a hip-hop/multimedia club night.
The kind of names that I was looking at were Blueprint, Collective. One was Offbeats or Beatniks, and then Antidote. But again, that's kind of, the name is a bit more open to...
It's a work in progress.
Exactly.
I think you should come up with a stronger name.
Okay. Also, like, I'd like to have somewhere where you could maybe have short films being shown, like photography, an umbrella for just creativeness, like a really creative kind of night, you know. I'm targeting people that are looking for something a little bit different, you know.
And do remember that it's a Saturday night, so you've got to get the people in the door. You've got to make the bar money selling beer and whatnot.
I think it would be best to launch something like this after the summer, kind of August, September.
Colin strikes me as someone who's very, very creative.
He's in danger of having too many ideas and losing focus of the Saturday night and the Saturday night market, which is different to the other 6 nights of the week. The location, he said, the music centre, I don't think that'll work. But then his second suggestion of the Gaiety is perfect. It would be something that he'd have to negotiate, and he'd have to probably brush up on his negotiation skills and his pitch to kind of for the Gaiety to take him seriously and consider his idea.
The new club needs visuals, so each candidate gets 3 hours with a top graphic designer. Colin's with Richard Seabrook, whose clients include Meteor and EMI, while Dan works with designer and graffiti artist Alan Hester. However, Colin has a problem. He still hasn't nailed down a name.
I think we should try and come up with a name before we do any graphics.
Meanwhile, Dan and Alan are having a few technical problems.
Okay, you gave me a dodgy power book. Yeah, I haven't plugged in. Well.
An hour later, and Colin and Richard aren't making much progress.
From our perspective, we need to lock down what the name is first, then the graphics are going to come off that. So we sort of thought that the name wasn't the strongest name in terms of what he was trying to say. We sat down with him and worked out a new name, sort of ran by about 4 or 5 names, and finally sort of came up with the idea of Flipside. And we've only got 2 hours to come up with an illustration and typography, so it's a pretty heavy order.
And technical problems over, Dan has just got started.
So the name anyway, it works, I think, yeah, I guess so.
The whole idea is to kind of branch out from what they normally do, do you know what I mean?
2 hours later, and after some hard graft, both candidates have ended up with designs they're happy with. It's the day before both candidates make their club night presentations to Mark and Lachlan.
My name is Dan Belton from Choice Cuts Promoters.
But Mark has spotted a problem with Colin's laid-back approach to the task that needs to be nipped in the bud.
Hey Mark, how's it going?
What I'd be scared of is that he kind of would think of us as kind of, you know, we're just here to bounce ideas off, whereas, you know, in the back, like, we're thinking, like, who are we going to choose? Who's going to work with us? Something needs to be switched on, and maybe if I have a conversation with him, I can. You've got a finite amount of hours today and tomorrow to do all this. You know, it seems to me that you really need to kind of switch on to the bottom line of all this. The end goal is to make a profit on the night.
Of course, yeah.
Or at least avoid a heavy loss. Try and take a less idealistic approach to what we're doing here, and to be more affirmative and astute as to what is the end goal.
While Colin's taking Mark's feedback on board, Dan's off to meet Micromedia, who print and distribute club flyers. He's working out the costs for marketing his live rock and hip-hop night, Amped.
I'm going down to Micromedia today just to finalise some prices for posters and flyers and stuff like that, because that's a very important part of how we'd organise the gig.
That's the first step in the kind of marketing.
Mark's pep talk seems to have paid off for Colin.
A lot of what he said was pretty valid. Honestly, actually, I think it would have been better a little bit earlier.
Now Colin presses on with the next part of his business plan, finding a venue. Ideally, he wants to use Dublin's prestigious Gaiety Theatre.
Colin would be very like I would be about 5 years ago. Like, if that's the way he is, that's the way he is. But if he can come and deliver this idea on Friday, you know, he surprised us last week. He could easily surprise us again this week.
Dan, meanwhile, is struggling to find the right venue for his club before tomorrow's presentation.
Keep kind of going round in circles where I'm kind of like, oh, maybe this venue, but like Carnival was kind of like my original idea, and maybe it's the original idea because it was the best idea, so we'll see, like, you know. But if I walk in without a venue, it's all really just pie in the sky kind of.
With just hours to go, Colin's making realistic figures his priority.
I'm going to work a bit on the business plan now, and I think it's probably a little bit late now just to start getting figures. I'll be all negotiating with the Gaiety themselves, so it's really up to my negotiating skills and what I can bring for them. Can I guarantee the punters to come in and whatnot?
But the Gaiety aren't willing to meet with Colin, so he has to fall back on his plan B, the Temple Bar Music Centre. And at the last minute, with everything else in place, he does some research to find out if his multimedia club has a market. It's crunch time, the final day of Dan and Colin's work placement. Later on today they'll find out who gets their dream job, but before that they must present